Hey guys, just wanted to share a couple words of encouragement with you this morning. Read of a little girl that was banging away on a piano in a famous hotel, and the other guests began to complain. They began to say, "You know what? This is annoying. We can't stand this." They went to the concierge. They talked to the receptionist. I mean, everything they could do to get her to be silenced on that piano. And finally, the concierge said, "Look, that is the daughter of our most prestigious guest, and I am not going to be the one to tell her to stop playing the piano. He'll be back tomorrow. You can take it up with him then." Well, sure enough, he came back the next day, and he snuck up behind this little girl who was still banging away on the piano, and he put his arms around her, and come to find out, he was a famous musician, and what once was just banging on a piano all of a sudden turned into beautiful music. You know, our prayers and our faith are like that. Sometimes we feel like when we are praying, when we're trying to exercise our faith, that we're just banging away, making awful noises. It's a feeble attempt at trying to do what is right. But you know, God has a way of putting his arms around us and turning those feeble prayers and that feeble faith into a mighty faith and into becoming a mighty prayer warrior. You know, Paul demonstrated the importance of prayer. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, he says, "We don't want you to be unaware, brothers, of the affliction that we experienced in Asia. For we were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired even of life itself. Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death. But that was to make us rely on God, who raises from the dead." And then he says in verse 10, he said, "He delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he'll deliver us again. On him we have set our hope that he will deliver us again." But this is the point I want you to catch about this passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 1. He closes out, or he continues by getting the church at Corinth to be prayer warriors. He says, "You also must help us by prayer, so that many will give thanks on our behalf for the blessings granted to us through the prayers of many." The Apostle Paul was convinced that the prayers of a church made a difference in his life and in his ministry. In fact, the author of Hebrews tells us in Hebrews chapter 11 that through faith, the Old Testament saints conquered kingdoms, they enforced justice, they obtained promises, they stopped the mouths of lions, they quenched the power of fire, they escaped the edge of the sword, they were made strong out of weakness, they became mighty in war, and they put foreign armies, to flight. You know, this morning I want to encourage you to continue this thought of prayer that we've been discussing this week. And I want you to see the importance of it, especially for our healthcare workers today. And maybe this is a little personal because my daughter is an emergency room nurse at UAMS in Little Rock. And she was quarantined for 14 days because she got exposed to a patient who had coronavirus. And immediately the day that she was released after, she did not contract the disease or the infection, and but immediately they put her back to work, and they scheduled her for 11 12-hour shifts in a row, plus added orientation during a few of her day shifts. And so she works at night, and then for a few of those days she'll have to go to orientation for 6 hours a day. Now, what that does is it produces health workers that are extremely fatigued, exhausted, and wore out. Arkansas hasn't faced yet the power of the pandemic like other places such as New York and New Orleans and Chicago, even Detroit. These states and these cities are facing the battle of our lifetime against this virus, and we need to remember our healthcare workers in prayer. We need to hold them up, that God's protection would preserve them, that God would break down every obstacle for them to receive the personal protection equipment that they need. We need to pray that God would destroy and remove the politics out of this pandemic and allow us to work together as a nation so that that we get them the resources that they so desperately need. Never underestimate the power of our feeble attempts at prayer and our faith. God has ordained those to operate when the child of God prays, when they pray in faith. And Jesus said, asking what you will, believing you will receive. And so we want to lift up our healthcare workers today. I want to lift you up today, and I want to thank God for our church, and I look forward to being able to fellowship again, whenever this passes. But until then, keep the faith. God bless.